It's no secret that lots of people struggle with anxiety. And today on Bridges, we will talk about the answer to anxiety. Welcome to Bridges. I'm Monica Schmelter, and I'm so glad that you could join us. On Bridges, our prayer is that we can bring you hope for the journey. And today we're going to be looking at the answer to anxiety. And Julie, I want to welcome you to Bridges today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I love being here.
And we love having you. I know you've been here before, and you know, you're working as a life coach. You're also a licensed therapist. So I would think with all of that experience, you've seen a lot of people riddled with and struggling with anxiety.
Yes, it's very profound how many people have it. And no matter who you are, it can affect you, because anxiety truly is the body's response to stress.
Yeah.
So it's trying to protect you from not getting hurt again or having something break down again. But when the cycle has started and kind of, as I say, the narrative has begun, whether you're stressed around, I don't know, finances, or a person leaving you or disappointing you, or weather affecting how you drive. Our body, God designed our body to help us and protect us. So somehow in the way that is set up, at times we can devote too much attention to whatever the stressor was that caused us the pain.
Gotcha.
And so then our body is overworking, kind of over-functioning in order to protect us from that happening again.
Yeah. So that at its root,
yes,
it's meant to be a positive, protective thing.
Yeah, well, yes, exactly. That the fear that is there is supposed to help us gain some wisdom, so we might think differently about how we act in the weather or how we act downtown at night, for instance. But it's when we've given too much attention to the fear that it becomes anxiety. Right. And so the anxiety isn't necessarily trying to help us, but the intent for our body is to try and protect us, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense. And I think that, I know that I can relate, and I'm sure so many of you that are watching or listening today are thinking, when we're experiencing a lot of anxiety, it does not seem at all helpful.
No.
But if we can look back to that, at its root, it's our body trying to help us. It's that we magnify it and give way too much attention and time and detail to it that causes it to get out of hand. There are so many, Julie, like record numbers of anxiety and people struggling. So in terms of ourselves, when we talk about the answer to anxiety, what does that look like? What does that even mean?
Yeah, the answer to anxiety. So for me and from what I do, really the answer is God, right? The answer is asking God to help provide us with wisdom around what is causing us this anxiety. How can we connect with the body that God gave us in order to understand what the anxiety, what the body is telling us in that moment? And there's a little quick 3-step thing I like to say: stop, pause, and ask God, and then what do I need? What do I need right now? Because usually the anxiety is around a story, something that's happened in the past, a cycle, our body's responding to a trigger. So in that moment, stop, what do I need? God. And then what can I do about that? So, you know, because God will always, and our body will tell us if we just stop and pause to listen. So that's really the answer, but sometimes that doesn't work for people. So I realize sometimes people have, you know, general anxiety disorder or post-traumatic stress disorder. These are highly anxious people who are struggling with all of these symptoms. So sometimes in those matters, we need to ask for help. What does that look like? It might look like talking to a counselor or a therapist or a psychiatrist, potentially for medicine, which I know can be controversial, but it doesn't have to be the long-term goal. It's just for a while so that your body can start to relearn a new habit. And God created us for change. So we can change, and that's powerful. It's just, I think some people don't realize that they can, but medicine is there, in my view, to help us in those overwhelming times when we're truly just at the mercy of it and we can't get a grip on it.
And some people, you know, that are watching or listening, if you haven't experienced that, right, you might not understand it. I have a really close friend who was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. And so for her, she started that journey of being aware when it had already gripped her to the point of not wanting to do anything, not wanting to leave the house. But she was willing, Julie, to get some help.
Yes.
And she got some medicine. And that between that medicine and prayer, lots of prayer, you know, all of our friends, community praying for her, counseling, learning these steps, like that you can indeed stop and pause. As she learned those helpful tools, she didn't have to stay on that medicine. It was like a 6-month window for her that got her out of like the emergency room.
That's right. That's right.
And got her back onto just the normal things that human beings do in a fallen, broken world where there is anxiety and stressors and triggers.
That's right. I mean, even just on the way here today, there was a car accident. And so my mind goes to people who've had traumatic, you know, events like a car accident. Those people are going to experience significant anxiety. Maybe the car accident happened when it rained. So every time they're in the car and the rain is happening, their body is trying, like I said, to protect them from that ever happening again. God designed us that way so that we could survive, so we could still be here, right? But what we don't understand sometimes is, how do I slow all that down? And when that's happening, I'm not really feeling like I'm in control. So I like to do a little metaphor about medicine sometimes, that it's almost, if you imagine you're in the basement in the dark and you can't see, but you see a light and you see a door up there that leads to the kitchen, and you can't find the stairs that helps you get to that light and that door up from the basement. And medicine provides the stairway. It provides us the stairs to get up to being able to be in control, like in that car situation for that person struggling. They can, okay, I can do this. I can drive. I'm going to be okay. And what happens, which is so awesome again about how God created us, is when we start to have a positive experience again, it sets up a new neural pathway around that anxiety. And then we just rinse and repeat. We just rinse and repeat. And then the story starts to change.
Because God made us, right, so that success begets success.
That's right.
And you know, and confidence. Like for my friend, it started to get to be like, okay, I can go to the grocery store.
That's right.
And if it feels like everything is falling apart, if she acknowledges that and stops and asks God into that, she found great help from that, whereas prior to counseling and medication, she couldn't get that far. It was just get her to the car as fast as she could get to the car.
That's right.
Then she became afraid to go out, because who wants that to happen? You know, but now she lives a really adventurous life, like a much different life, because she was willing to acknowledge, she was willing to ask for help, she was willing to get professional help, and she's at a much better place.
And I think sometimes, you know, obviously God doesn't want these terrible things to happen to us that cause anxiety, but I do believe that He uses these instruments, these things that do occur, for us to lean more on Him, for us to deepen our relationship and our dependency on Him. And what I love about, if you look at fear on a continuum, which is the root of anxiety, on one end of the continuum is panic and anxiety. On the other end is wisdom. And God is the source of wisdom.
Yes, He is.
So just to remember that when you do feel anxious, do what you can to stop and pause and ask God, God, what do I need to do here? What do I need to do? And listen for the answer. Because He will have something. And maybe it's just sit. Maybe it's just breathe. Maybe it's pray. Maybe it's listen to some worship music. Maybe it's call someone that's emotionally comforting or safe to you. There's lots of options. It's just doing something different. And that starts the new habit.
And that habit part of it is really key. For all of us. When we say the answer to anxiety, it's not just doing one thing and it all shuts down and goes away, right?
That's right.
We're talking about building habits, living differently, acknowledging our need for God, whether that's to pause and just be really quiet or pause and sing a song, because different things work for different people, and that's fine. But that it's a lifestyle of really acknowledging it's a stressful world.
It is a stressful world, and there's so much noise and angst literally buzzing going around us all the time. So it's really, if you can just take a minute and just slow down, think of like a volume dial, and you're just wanting to dial it back a little bit. How can I do that? That might mean just sitting here and drinking my coffee without the TV on, or without my phone and scrolling and all these things. All of that, unfortunately, as fun as sometimes it is, it does feed into all of that energy and that up kind of decibel that we're living in.
Yes.
So what we can do is many things, but you have to be intentional around taking the time to start doing some things differently. And you will notice a difference.
That's
but you just
amazing.
have to, you can write down and keep a record of the changes, set a goal for yourself. Maybe this week you try, having your coffee in silence. Or you don't listen to anything in the car other than worship music. There's things that you can do to help calm it down.
Right. Because we get so used to the noise.
Yes,
right?
we do.
Like when I have a long commute to the studio, so there have been sometimes I've decided that I'm just going to like not play music or listen to a podcast and just have it quiet.
Yes.
Goodness. We're just not used to sitting into that kind of quiet, most of us.
That's right.
It just seems like so long.
Yes.
And so uncomfortable.
Yes.
But once I got myself doing that on a regular basis, it actually brought a lot of peace. It helped me make better decisions. I wasn't like that all the time. It just dialed that way back. Is that a way?
That's a beautiful way. And maybe you found this to be true, but now I bet you start craving
Yes.
the silence and craving that peace. And I know for me personally, I have my peace time in the morning. I wake up before everybody else. I have my cup of coffee. I'm reading my devotional or doing whatever have you. And it's my time. And when I don't have that,
Yes.
I truly miss it. It's like food. It's my manna time. And so finding that in a way that is realistic for you is what we're looking for. And it doesn't have to be rocket science.
Exactly. Easy is good. We've got to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be back here in just a moment.
If you enjoy watching Bridges, you can join Monica on Facebook for all the extras. Just visit Facebook and search for Monica Schmelter TV. At Monica Schmelter TV, you'll get a look behind the scenes. You'll learn secrets from the studio, and you'll be among the first to know what's coming up next on Bridges. Best of all, you can connect with Monica for prayer and share what topics you'd most like to see on Bridges. Monica would love to connect with you.
Don't give in. God's word says you're an overcomer. If you hadn't done blah, 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 this wouldn't have happened. And let me say this to you. If you think that you are in a mess of your own making, you are still an overcomer. When that temptation comes, you want to make sure that you are dressed for battle. Therefore, put on every piece of God's armor so you will be able to resist the enemy in the time of evil. It takes training. It takes discipline. And so when you're fighting that good fight of the faith, you take your story, whatever it is, and you saturate it in faith, and you fight for it.
Visit monicaschmelter.com to schedule Monica to speak at your next event.
Today on Bridges, we are talking about the answer to anxiety. My guest works as a life coach. She's also a licensed therapist, and I'm so glad that she can be here with us today, helping us unpack all the things so that we can live calmer, more peaceful lives. And Julie, it is so good to have you back on Bridges.
Thank you.
You know, and I think for most of us, right, we want to live a calm and a peaceable life. At the same time, most of us live pretty busy and hectic schedules, right?
Yes.
Go here to there. If you've got younger kids, you're going to ball games, parent-teacher conferences. people are working on their careers, and like that can all be extremely stressful.
Yes.
I
Yes.
think also all of the information that's available today,
Yes.
while we love having that technology and information, I think it can also lead to stress.
It can, and unfortunately, the brain grows with what it knows. So whatever we feed it, that becomes bigger. So, for instance, during COVID and things like that, you know, a lot of people were watching the news incessantly.
Yes.
And so what did it do? It created more anxiety, more panic around all things COVID related. And so we just want to be mindful of that. There's a reason God made our brain that way, but we as the adults, as the humans, we need to be mindful about what we're filling, what we're feeding our brain with. And so some of that can be like, you know, if I'm driving to get the kids and take them to dance and take them to soccer and all the things, I want to be really intentional with my time in the car when I don't have the kids, or when I'm not, when I'm in traffic, I want to be conscious of what am I doing in those moments to try and lower my anxiety, so I'm not, walking around or driving around like a nervous wreck.
Right. And you know, the Bible talks to us about renewing our mind.
Yes.
And not being conformed to the pattern of the world. And
Yes.
the pattern of the world, at least right now in our culture, is that everybody wears, busy as a badge of honor.
Yes.
The most common response when you say to people, "How are you?" "Oh, I'm good, I'm just tired because I've been doing this, this, and this." And we weren't meant to be overscheduled either. There's
no.
only so much really that can fit
That's
on
right.
a human being's plate. And so that part is like our responsibility to not overcommit, right?
Yes.
To keep the stress away by only committing to things that we really feel like God wants on our plate and that are manageable for us.
That's right. And we have to kind of recognize, okay, what is going to serve me and my family? What can I say yes to? Because if I'm constantly saying yes to everyone else, then I'm actually saying no to me.
Absolutely.
And to maybe my family or my husband. And so that can just really get us off track and off balance. Obviously, God wants us to serve others, but we need to be mindful of how we do that. And we can start by just changing some habits around and recognizing what is actually this habit serving, what's the result or the reward that it is giving me. An easy way to look at this is to break down the formula of how we change a habit. And this is from a book called The Power of Habit that I really love. So it's not my formula. I must give that credit to the writer of The Power of Habit. But you isolate what the cue is, you isolate what the behavior is you want to change, and then what is the reward that it gives you. So an easy way to look at this is the morning is the cue. What's the behavior? The cup of coffee. What's the result? I feel awake.
Yes.
So if I want to change my habit of coffee, I don't want to make it too hard on myself, so maybe hot tea. Maybe something that doesn't have caffeine in it if I'm trying to get rid of caffeine. Does it necessarily help me feel as awake? No, but it will still make me feel awake and will help me create a new habit.
And it would still be a comforting habit.
That's exactly right.
Because for a lot of us, just having a cup of coffee, in the morning, that is a reward. I mean, the caffeine might make me feel more awake, but just that habit of having something warm to drink just helps the day get off to a better start.
That's right. That's right. And we're creatures of habit.
Yes, we are.
We like to do the things that we've been doing forever, for years. But if we're wanting to look at and that's just a simple one, but making a healthier choice. So for instance, if you're in the car and doing all those things that the busy soccer mom I was describing, the cue is, it's 2:30, I've got to get in the car to go get my kids. The habit I've been doing is maybe listening to the podcast or talking to my friend on the phone or being really busy and erratic on the road. And then the result of that is, well, I get there on time, I'm picking up my kids, but if I do something different in between the two, the result is I'm still going to get there on time, but I'm going to be much calmer in the process and actually have better conversations with my kids when I pick them up, be more present and aware when I'm watching their soccer or their dance. So the results really do, when we change those habits, far outweigh the other result we were used to.
Yes.
Better for us.
Right. Well, because we can get used to stress and anxiety.
Absolutely.
I mentioned to you that I have a long commute.
Yes.
So what I used to do, and I told myself, right, that this helped me be more productive, is that I would return a lot of calls, like work calls in the commute time. And okay, so I looked at it that I was getting all this more work done. But what I found, what I didn't like about that habit, was that when I got home, I didn't feel as fully present with my husband. I felt all talked out, like I had worked all day, and then for 45 minutes to an hour on the commute, I did more problem solving, more this, more that, and I realized that I needed to change that drive home so that I wouldn't be out of words when I got home, right?
That's
so that I
right.
could have a great conversation, so that I could say, how was your day, and really mean it and ask questions instead of feeling like I'm just done talking to people.
That's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. And so what you're recognizing is the relationship that I really care about. Yes, work is something we do,
course.
but I really want to be present for the people at home that I love.
Yes.
That I want to pour into the way God wants me to pour into my relationships, right? And so we just want to, rethink, how we're doing, what we're doing. And I always say, think about what you think about, right?
Yes.
Think about your day. Just take a step back, just a perspective shift,
Yeah.
Lord. And if we're not sure, and sometimes we're not, but just ask God,
Yeah.
what do I need to maybe do differently this week?
Yep.
Or with my husband or with my children, what do you want? How do you want me to show up differently?
Yes.
And then show me, Lord, how can I do that differently?
Yes.
And He will.
Yes, and that's exactly how, because I didn't really equate initially all of that phone conversation with when I got home.
Yeah.
I just felt anxious, and I'm an introvert, so I just wanted to absolutely retreat,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
And I asked God, like, what is this about my schedule? What can I do? And He began to show me, like when I was in the car, I realized, okay, I think I'm getting more done, right? But really, for the most important relationship in my life, other than, of course, with Christ, with my husband, I wasn't listening to him like I wanted to.
Absolutely.
I was just sort of wanting to isolate and do all those things. So changing that for me brought me this much greater reward to go home and laugh and joke and have fun with my husband. And I'm still an introvert, so there comes a time I have to go run and hide, but not until after I've had a really fun time with him.
Yes, absolutely. And I love how you're recognizing just what is truly valuable and what is of value, and that it is that relationship with your husband. And there's things that God called you to do differently, and then you did it.
Yes.
And you found such a greater reward in the end.
Yes.
And then our body starts to get used to the new.
Absolutely.
It starts to crave more of that new thing. And that's how we change this. Because again, God designed us to change. He made us 100% malleable. It's called neuroplasticity. It's been researched.
It's a big word.
It's a big word.
Neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity. That's right. You said it. And all it is our neural pathways in our body and our brain can change.
Yes.
And if that's not testimony to the scripture of how God truly does renew our minds, I don't know what is.
Yeah. And He gives us all of that without the word neuroplasticity in the Bible, but the renewing of our minds, right?
Absolutely.
And the structure in our day and how He created, right, the heavens and earth. He could have spoke it, right, all in one moment, but He did it over a process because that's mostly how we learn and grow.
That's exactly how we
God
learn.
could give us all a creative miracle, and I'm not against that, right? But most of the time, it's through a process of faith and obedience and willingness to change. And He made us for health.
Yes, He
And
did.
so I always remind myself that even if this habit seems awful at first to change, because sometimes it does.
It's hard.
Yeah. But we eventually, as you said, right, start to crave the good and the healthy things if we can just at the beginning, so to speak, bite the bullet
Yes.
and just say, this is going to be really hard for me to change, not taking all these work calls on my way home, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like I've got to do this, right?
Yeah.
But if I do that, I'm going to get used to a new habit and something new in my life.
That's right. That's right. And it's absolutely possible. And just start simple. We want to set
Yeah.
ourselves up for success, not for perfection.
Right.
One of my favorite pastors, Pastor Craig Groeschel, talks a lot about this in his sermon series but we don't want to expect perfection because then we will fail.
Yeah.
We want to lean on the Lord and just stick with it. If we fall down, if we have a bad day, if we forget to do the thing that we said to God we were going to do, it's okay. You can start your day over at any time. It doesn't have to be in the morning.
No, it does not. It does not.
So we just want to be mindful of the things that we're trying. We're asking God, surrender, Lord, help me with this new thing. I
Yes.
want to do this differently. Just to be patient with ourselves
Right.
and be consistent.
Right. And it can also be, the habit can be like a stair-step thing.
Yes.
If it needs to be. Because, you know, you meet people and they're like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to change this, I'm going to change this. And it's too much to start at
Oh,
one
yeah.
time.
No, just keep it simple.
Yeah.
Keep it simple. I had an acting teacher years ago. She would say, keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
Kiss. And I always remember that. But we can't take in too much information. We can't change much at once. Just like you were talking about creation. God intentionally did it that way when he could have done it differently.
Yes.
And again, we're made in his image. So he's designed us for a process.
Absolutely.
And it does take time, but it's absolutely possible to
Yes.
change this stuff.
Absolutely. Well, we are out of time.
Yes.
But thank you so much for
My
coming
pleasure.
today. It's been so good to have you. I'm so glad that all of you could join us and hope that this talk on the answer to anxiety will help bring much needed peace and rest inside of your life. I'm going to come back in just a moment with more Hope for the Journey.
Finding hope in today's life is not always easy. Bridges with Monica Schmelter is making it simple. You can now listen to podcast episodes on popular platforms like iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Life Audio, and more by searching for Monica Schmelter to find God's hope for your journey.
So if you're looking for hope for the journey, monicaschmelter.com is a great place to get started. On monicaschmelter.com, you'll find Monica's teachings on demand. And if you're looking to really grow your faith, you'll find online extras are available with every teaching. So don't wait another day. Get started now at monicaschmelter.com and you will find hope for the journey.
Here's some hope for the journey. If you say yes to everything just because you like to help and you feel like it's a good idea, probably at some point you're going to end up tired and stressed out and feeling a lot of anxiety. So if that's you, and that's been me on many occasions, begin to really start to say no to things that really don't make sense for you. Of course, pray about it. See what you need to take off of your plate. And if you find no really hard to say, take a pause. Start to say to people, you know, let me get back with you. It gives you the time to think it through. And then when it comes time to say no, remember this. No is a complete answer. It's a complete sentence. No apology, no explanation is necessary. It's just no to that so that you can say yes to all the good that God has for you. I'll see you next time on Bridges with more Hope for the Journey.